Flawedcast number 85. We are not descendant of fearful men. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. G. Michael Hopf.
Flawedcast.
Flawedcast!
Get in the arena.
Play the man.
Woo! America!
What's up, Will? How you doing this morning, buddy?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm doing pretty good. You know, the sun's shining, and, well, I hate people. But other than that...
Wow, there has been a reversal of roles between...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that we accidentally bumped into each other or something, and you took my happy-go-lucky attitude, and I've taken your death.
Did you guys
dark
both pee into a fountain at the same time?
Oh, shit, that's what it was, Bill. The other night when we were hammered and we were cross swords, I bet.
That's right. We crossed the streams. That's
never crossed the streams.
Never crossed the streams.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, well...
What's happening, Johnny? Good to have you back.
Here's Johnny.
Back in black. It's good to have you back, Johnny. Seriously.
It's good to be back. I'm glad I was able to retrieve my testicles from my wife's purse.
Yeah. Well,
so is she.
I don't think you retrieved them. I'm pretty sure she just gave them back to you.
Yeah,
they're on loaner.
They're on loan for the day.
We don't need these anymore. We got her through the grad party.
And we got...
Hello.
What's happening, Norm?
You know, not much. Sorry, I was distracted there.
Yeah, it's distracted, not paying attention.
Hi, guys.
He's phoning in another wonderful Flawedcast performance. So,
So Bill, why don't you get started, man? Where can they find Flawedcast, bro?
You can listen to us anywhere podcasts are: Apple, Spotify, Google Play, Flawedcast, Flawedcast CLE, doing well on Rumble, YouTube, Flawed Inc. You can find us anywhere the Project Mockingbird social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, doing really well on Gab, Parler, and MeWe. Our website, flawedinc.com. My book, Smith's Heart of Man Repair Manual, is doing well.
I have an update. Keep going.
Okay, well, yeah, so go ahead. This is the, maybe coincide with the update.
Internationally known, fellas. Internationally known.
Are you big in Europe?
Actually, I got notification that my book has been selling in England, actually. So...
Well, again, when I did my filters and everything in the search, I did not go outside of the country, so I don't know how the international is going. However, this is pretty impressive. I'm 48 continental states, landlocked, the United States of America.
Is that everything but Puerto Rico?
Hawaii and Alaska?
Oh,
Portland.
Yeah, Puerto Rico is not actually a state.
Oh.
So the 48 states.
Just sit there and look.
US
Just sit there and look pretty normal.
Means Alaska and Hawaii.
Themselves.
They're not connected.
Sorry. I play the part of the dumb blonde.
They're not part of the continent. This is crazy. So the filters that I put in was top selling books, blind author, dog named Shandy, kidney transplant. And with that search, drum roll please. Bill is the number one author in the 48 continental states. So I will say that that's impressive, Bill. That's impressive.
Thank you.
I
Yes.
know that there's copies just laying all around my house.
Yeah,
I don't think
and-
anyone's actually read them, but they're laying all around.
That's okay.
I look smarter by having them laying around my house.
That's okay. I know a lot of people go to your house, so just leave it out there as an advertisement for me. And they're like, oh, what's this? Like, hey, other than the Bible, that's the best book I've ever read.
No, what I say, because I don't want to lie, I say, other than the Bible, this is the best book I ever bought.
It's not my book.
They assume that I read it. They assume that I read it. But I did purchase it, so that's telling the truth.
There you go. I'll be awaiting your 5-star review on Amazon. Anyway, so we do want to thank and welcome everyone to a brand new episode of Flawedcast. And as our tradition...
What we're going to do here today, folks, and listen, I understand that you're not going to hear this until at least July 9th, but today is the 4th of July weekend.
So yes, happy birthday to what's remaining of the Republic. We're going to get into that in a little bit in a moment. But Jason...
All right, let's get this going. We're going to take right hand over left heart. Please say with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So, hey, where's the math? How old are we tomorrow?
Jeez,
76, right?
No, well, I know when we were born,
I feel about...
but I got to do the math.
I feel about 245 years old.
Yeah, 6 from 11 is 5. You take the last two numbers. The 1,
1776.
6
go
from
forward
1.
To 1800, and then you add your 200.
Or you just use a calculator.
Or
You
you
come up with 245.
That's what I said!
Tanner, where are you going? I'm setting booby traps. Booby traps. That's what I said, Sam. Setting booby traps.
You didn't say 245. You said like 246.
I said 245.
Yeah.
All right, well, let the record show I did. So anyway,
Math is racist.
Overruled.
Math is racist.
Our John's a racist.
We're all racist.
So how about that? 245 years is what it took for people to crush our country. Not too bad. It's a pretty good run. Well, one thing I'll say is this. If we had like a monarchy or dictatorship, it'd last longer because you could just go kill everyone who disagree with you.
Well, according to the new National Strategy for Countering Domestic Terrorist report released by the Biden administration, it states people that question elections, people that question the efficacy of vaccinations, people who are advocates for the First and Second Amendment, people who are Christians or have a system of faith are now considered to be among domestic terrorists. So as our founding fathers were considered domestic terrorists by the tyrannical evil of that day represented by King George and the entire British Empire, I tip my hat with you gentlemen to be...
Did they actually release that?
Yeah, it's a thing. Look it up. The National Strategy for Countering Domestic Terrorism, released by the NSA, FBI.
And would you have a link at the bottom of the...
I can, yeah.
Yeah, I think the link at the bottom. Go ahead and click on it. We just want to make sure people realize that we didn't make that up.
Yeah, it's not one of those Phil things that he just...
It's one of those things you made up.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Anyway, so this episode is going to be going back to sort of the philosophical type episode. Last week was really political and conspiratorial, apparently, but nonetheless, it's all true. It's a fact.
Facts are important.
But it's important that we are trying to expound upon things that are intangible because I genuinely believe we are in the final moments of this republic. And you can take that for what you will. So it's important that we give people things that when the lights physically, metaphorically go out, there's something that is deposited deep within your spirit, deep within your mind that you can draw on as a source of strength in conjunction with the Almighty and His Word. We need to hold fast to the ideologies that we are sharing, going back to the 7 ages of man, going back to the 21 rules for life and 7 deadly sins. Like this is going to be, once again, in that vein because it's important that we now begin to build upon intangibles so that moving in the hour of history, we can navigate successfully and hope that we can be used to be that light in a dark and lost and dying world.
Navigation.
So this episode, I almost verbatim, I lifted from a group that I love their website. I love their episodes they put out on YouTube. It's called Warrior Poet Society. And the name of the episode that they put out recently was called, Why Are We the Weakest Generation of All Time? Literally, I lifted the majority of it. And I'm going to put a link to the video. I would suggest everybody watch it. It's like 15 minutes long. Norm watched it. You thought highly of it.
It's over 17 minutes long, just to be exact. So what did you think, Norm?
I thought it was very interesting, and it was triggering. What was I talking about when I got here about that? What did he say
that people call him a racist, however he worships a brown-skinned Middle Eastern man.
Yeah,
obviously he's talking about Christ.
You're right. That struck me. You can call Christians racist when Jesus was from the Middle East, so it's just.
So I'm going to call upon Jason to start off here with the notes. We're going to start with a couple scripture, then we're going to get into the 4 main points of this episode.
History and time are cyclical. Ecclesiastes 1:9, New International Version. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Ecclesiastes 3:15, New International Version. Whatever is has already been, and what will be has been before, and God will call the past to account.
Yeah, so basically, we are talking about things that have always been in existence. However, this is the struggle for our generation, and this is our fight. It's important to recognize the cycle in history so that we can acknowledge when and where these hard times come from and understand what we must do and what we must do to correct these difficult times. So as we see that we are making this shift spiritually, certainly politically, definitely economically, we have to realize, going back to that quote that Jason read at the beginning, that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. It's a cyclical action. Our grandfather's generation, I believe, were strong men that created out of hard times that prosperity that, at least in America, the expansion from the late 40s to early 60s, where literally America was catapulted to be the supreme power. And now it's literally been eroded in a steady incline to now we have people who are competing to be in the Olympic Games representing this country saying they hope they win a gold medal so they can burn our flag in front of the world. One of the things that this gentleman spoke about in the video is that people who have been to war, people who have fought, they understand that war literally is hell, and they will do whatever they can to avoid that. But we have a bunch of people who are gamers who think that Grand Theft Auto and Fortnite and Call of Duty is real life warfare, and I think there's a rude awakening coming on every side. So I've said this before, if things go kinetic, we lose. But what we're doing now is trying trying to impart things into people to give you hope, to give you strength, to give you hopefully courage to navigate and move forward these times and speak your mind and stand firmly on the truth. So
my good buddy James says, consider it nothing but joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you fall into various trials. Be assured that the testing of your faith through experience produces endurance, leading to spiritual maturity and inner peace. And let endurance have its perfect result and do a thorough work, so that you may be perfect and completely developed in your faith, lacking in nothing.
Word. All right, so we're going to get into 4 main sections here. First one, it says, we are all little kings. The second one is, courage has died and we mourn her not. The third one is, we are chocolate soldiers. And the fourth one is, it's all your fault. I don't know who wants to start, but let's go ahead and go through the notes. Norm's looking at me a certain way and making me feel a certain way. So
All right,
yes,
sure.
he likes the kings.
We are all little kings. If you gaze back through history and survey the most decadent and lavish empires throughout all time, even the most poor and impoverished in our society today have access to things those who lived previously would have only dreamed of. Air conditioning in the summer, heat in the winter, ice, the ability to get a vehicle that can go upwards of 80 miles per hour upon smooth and paved roads, relatively free from threats, the ability to board a plane and fly anywhere at any time throughout the entire world, having instant access to information that would have taken previous generations centuries, decades, years, months, and days to be able to accumulate in a matter of seconds, Tylenol, running hot and cold water and indoor toilets, ice, access to food and long-term storage of that food on a convenient and readily accessible constant level. What these and countless other examples illustrate is that we are coddled and spoiled and have grown weak and accustomed to a life of relative ease.
Nervous.
You know, that's the other thing I was thinking about this morning when that guy was talking in that
How
video.
easy your life is?
Huh? Well, just the convenience is that we have, you know. It wouldn't take much for really somebody to put America into a whirlwind of just turmoil with, you know, our electrical grid
what it
or
would do is this.
our sources, our water sources.
It would be exactly what that it would be a good thing, because what will happen is again the buffalo theory, right? The weakest and slowest buffaloes fall to the back and they're eaten first. Let the strong survive.
Well, the whole point in what
The
Norm...
woke crowd would probably go first in that situation.
There's no probably about it.
Well, the whole point, like he was saying, Norm, is that like he and his wife went to England and they were touring all these old castles and all these old estates that royalty had lived in, that at that time was like the height of decadence and lavishness. But these people didn't have running water. They did not have ice unless it was in the winter. We can literally go to my fridge right now and get ice cubes, and Jason can put it in his iced tea.
I would miss hot showers. I'm not gonna lie. I love hot showers.
Well, no, but so this is part of that, and the reality of it is like these technological advances, while they're awesome, and I'm super appreciative and thankful, to a certain degree, it has made us weak on a holistic. I mean, maybe a mental level, but certainly on a physical level, it's made us weak. Like
weak and spoiled, like it says, and we get more spoiled day by day by day by day. I mean, the reality is this: my daughter will DoorDash ice cream instead of walk down the road and buy it. I remember walking to the ice cream store when I was a kid. Right? She just DoorDashes like a gallon of ice cream from Giant Eagle and makes herself a ice cream sundae. I'm like, really? She's like, yeah. Of course, she's got a job. That's where she gets the money to do that. But still.
Well, I mean, the poorest of the poor in this country have
Cable
more
television.
than...
Well, no, that's exactly it. And we also have, by and large, we have access to excellent medical care, medical treatment. We have access to even just traveling. Thinking about the fact that you guys can get in your car, drive 80 miles an hour on a...
I would never drive 80 miles an hour. It's above the speed limit. I wouldn't do that.
You can drive 80 miles an hour or 55 like you and Sammy Hagar.
60. Nothing's 55 anymore.
Listen,
give it the time.
Sammy Hagar is not to be messed with. The Red Rocker goes without challenge. Anyway.
Facebook reminded me about 5 years ago, I was with a church group going on a missions trip to Arizona to the Navajo reservation. And we did spend an entire week out there living in challenging conditions. It would probably still be considered luxurious to some countries, but there was no running water. There was none of the luxuries that we have now. And it took a couple days to get used to that. And then honestly, after a few days of living in the wild, if you want to call it that, you kind of get used to it. But it doesn't take very long at all once you get back to fall back into that soft pattern again. So there is a certain level of immersion to it. When you immerse yourself in it, you find that the body is resilient. You can get used, you can do what you got to do to survive.
Well, even more than that, if anybody watches anything or reads anything about survivalism or being prepared, the number one asset, and this is why we're talking about these things now, is mental preparedness, mental acuity that oh, I can't do this or I can't do that. That is what kills people in survival situations more than anything physical. It's the mental, not the physical, that ultimately leads people to harm and then eventually their death. So, all right, Johnny, number 2.
Courage has died, and we mourn her not. Joshua 1:9 states this: Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you will go. Wherever you will go. Sorry. Courage has been a highly esteemed virtue throughout time and throughout all customs, communities, and circles of faith and philosophies. It was true that at points in the past, calling someone a coward would typically lead to the duel to the death. However, now we celebrate victimology and shun and insult the virtue of courage.
And just to interject real quick, John, we're going to talk about something called intersectionality, which we talk a lot about this, but we didn't realize it actually had a definition. So, John, tell us about intersectionality.
It would be my pleasure to talk all about intersectionality, William. Intersectionality, also called intersectionality theory and intersectional theory. The theory that the overlap of various social identities as race, gender, sexuality, and class contributes to a specific type of systematic oppression and discrimination experienced by an individual that's often used attributively. Number 2, the oppression and discrimination resulting from the overlap of an individual's various social identities. For example, if you are Christian, white, male, a group who has very large amounts of numbers belonging to that group, your opinion isn't worth much and is devalued, and you have little or no moral superiority. Whereas, if you are a black, female, gay, trans person, etc., you are a minority. Within that minority, you can claim multiple victim statuses from a large swath of groups. It automatically gives you more moral superiority. Person number 2's opinion counts, whilst the first person's really does not. We are now competing for the status of victimhood, which gives people more moral ground to stand upon. MLK's dream, that's Martin Luther King for you who don't care, of judging one's character to evaluate their worth has been flipped on its head, to where now your level of victimology determines that.
Drop the mic.
I wrote that. So
I did that.
I wrote that segment. I wrote all these segments.
Oh, son of a bitch.
No, so I think this is a really important thing to look at because, and we've talked about this a lot, instead of judging a person's quality by the character of their hearts and the motivation of their actions, it's now we look at someone's status as whatever kind of group they belong to. And if you are a part of a minority, whether it be with your race, with a creed, with a certain sexual proclivity, whatever it be, the more minority within a minority that you can claim, that gives you more alleged moral superiority. And the problem with that is, once again, it just completely flips Martin Luther King Jr. mission statement on its head. It's antithetical, actually, to the gospel. It's antithetical to most systems of faith. And it's completely the opposite of what the founding fathers had intended for this country, because we talk a lot about socialism, but we also have to realize that the ruse of socialism is that everybody has equal outcome, not equal opportunity. And freedom, true freedom, is equal opportunity.
That's right.
And just because we are all straight, white, male, Christian patriots, that somehow means that our validity within society or our certain point of view somehow diminishes because we are allegedly part of whatever majority.
Well, this harkens back to we recorded when I was not here, but I did listen. The young lad who was in school talking about how he was disgraced, basically. This ties into that. I was actually moved very much so when I was listening. Anyway, but no, that harkens to that. This the dream, which is no longer now. It's no longer the American dream. Now it's just the dream that
was is now the nightmare that is. And wow, that was rather Shakespearean. We do try.
As a Christian, and as Christians, we are supposed to find our identity in Christ. Everything else is all surface. I imagine the devil talking to the demons and being like, let's trick the people into thinking their identity lies within their sexuality or thinking their identity lies within the color of their skin.
Well, what's interesting about the point you just made is one of my favorite authors is C.S. Lewis, and he wrote a book called The Screwtape Letters. Mm-hmm. It's basically about this demon named Screwtape who has I'll word it this way, not to give too much away. He has a hierarchical conversation with the demon that's over him, and it talks about
Wormwood.
Yes, Wormwood. Thank you. And Screwtape's talking to Wormwood about how he's literally trying to attack this man, and then they talk about how they try to attack regions, and it's set during World War I, but it talks about creating division. And we said this before in regards to demoralization when you're coming against a nation, when you're coming against a group of people. Demoralization and division are the two primary weapons that are deployed. And right now we see that. We are listening to a song by Toby Keith. This this morning called Happy Birthday America. And then we were listening to another song by a gentleman named Aaron Lewis, and Am I the Only One is the name of the song. And they were just basically talking about what I refer to as we are in the final moments of this republic. And I promise you listening who disagree, maybe we can make a GoFundMe or something to buy you a ticket, a one-way ticket to Venezuela or Cuba or one of these nations that have fully embraced and succumbed to the lunacy of socialism, which always throughout history shows it devolves into communism, and see if it's any better. I challenge that.
You know, it doesn't have to be one way. Maybe they'll open their eyes and want to come back.
But my larger point is, I can't stress enough, courage has died and we mourn her not. Instead of looking at a time when even being courageous, but people having courage, you can't tell me those men that were loaded up on those carriers going to storm the beaches of Normandy weren't scared out of their freaking mind. Because they were.
Hell yeah.
But they hit those beaches running because they realized that if they didn't stand and fight at that moment, the world would have succumbed to an evil like it's never known. And I would challenge people with no hyperbole, with no hubris, that, and I've said this previously, what the globalists, what the people that are now running the show, if you will, what they plan to unleash is a wet dream for guys like Hitler and Stalin and Mao. And so with that being said, courage has died and we mourn her not. And it's not about being quote unquote a hard ass. It's not about thinking like you're going to be Rambo. It's just simply standing in direct opposition to the wrongs and the evils of our day. It's simply saying no and stiffening your spine, finding where your grit is and just saying this is evil and I will not capitulate with it. And that's where that courage comes from. If somebody they're a minority, if their skin color is part of a smaller group, or if they happen to have a particular sexual orientation, or if they happen to believe in a certain type of faith, that in and of itself does not discount them as a person. The problem is that we have now taken those things as virtues when those don't define a individual's character and an individual's worth.
The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing.
Boom. 3. We are chocolate soldiers. This is a term originated by C.T. Studd. Every true soldier is a hero. A soldier without heroism is a chocolate soldier. Who has not been stirred to scorn and mirth at the very thought of a chocolate soldier? In peace, true soldiers are captive lions, fretting in their cages. War gives them their liberty and sends them, like boys bounding out of school, to obtain their heart's desire or perish in the attempt. Battle is a soldier's vital breath. Peace turns him into a stooping asthmatic. War makes him a whole man again and gives him the heart, strength, and vigor of a hero. C.T. Studd. Many of us today have the appearance of being strong and courageous, yet when the heat gets turned up, they start to melt like a chocolate soldier. Everything is offensive now. Cat in the Hat, canceled. MAGA hats are offensive. Statues being torn down in parks. Inconvenient facts in history. Two genders. Disagreements on healthy sexuality. Differences in opinion on policing in America. Guns in America. The Second Amendment. Karl Marx. BLM. Elections in America. The Kung Flu. Abortion. And 1,000 other triggers that send us running into our safe spaces. We cannot speak openly about anything. Everyone gets easily triggered. It was only within a generation where we can no longer talk about the most important things. God, money, politics. Before we couldn't talk about what matters. Now we can't even talk about what doesn't matter because everyone needs a safe space. We are so fragile. Little snowflakes made of glass. We can no longer agree to disagree. Now we risk being excommunicated or worse. Now, if someone disagrees with you, they are a Nazi or Hitler. And so reading that, it's true. It's absolutely unbelievable how my way or the highway is the absolute mantra for everyone now. Oh, you don't see it my way? Off. I'm not even going to think about looking at your way. And just like you were saying earlier, Norm, in the house with the pounding on the tables,
the Ohio representative that was proposing legislation or a bill to protect girls in college sports from having to compete against biological men. And as she's presenting this legislation, you hear the Democrats drowning her out, pounding on their tables, shouting at her.
Which is a temper tantrum. Because she doesn't agree with them, she doesn't even get it. You shouldn't even have a chance to speak because you don't agree with us. You agree with us or get out.
It is the ultimate take my ball and go home, but it's like to the umpteenth level. If you watch the video, like it's unnerving. You can visibly see on the countenance of the
you
people.
You watch that video and you get a sense of the spirit that was in that room.
Evil. I mean, I don't want to go all Fallen for a Denzel Washington movie, but I mean, you can sense the
She
spirit
was stirring
of evil.
the demons in that room.
Literally,
honestly.
the demons were writhing from the people who were banging the table.
Well, she wasn't, but
the spirit that was inside
right.
her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It like I'm watching this and like my inner spirit vibes are like lighting up. Like there's you talk about Luciferian acts and Luciferianism. It was there. It was very visible. The sense of just evil that was in the room.
That would probably actually be more in line with Satanism, because Luciferianism isn't necessarily the worship of, it's the adherence to the principles. But nonetheless, I get your point.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, what that shows is just straight weakness. Like, how weak do you have to be not to listen to someone else, not to listen to another's opinion?
The problem, people hate the truth. People hate,
Like I've been saying last couple episodes, people prefer deception and they hate reality. You're right, Norm. People need the truth. And this is one thing I've started to realize this week. And as I'm moving into a new area in my life and Jason and I's role reversals as we cross the streams, pissing into the lake the other day. But the larger point being is that moving into this place in where we're going, I would even say this, just to add an amendment, is that people who appear to be tough and people who appear to have a rugged exterior, I would even say those that aren't standing up to protect innocence and those who aren't standing up for genuine virtue, they just talk. Those are even chocolate soldiers. Because if you trace the lineage from where we are now back to our founding, we saw that there were great men who were literally peasants that were taking on them at that time, the superpower. But they stood in defiance and they stood in opposition of evil and tyranny. And there wasn't a place for talkers to talk. It was a matter of we need to walk the walk and we need to stand up against these things in our society, this pedophiliaism, this, take this for what you will, but one of the guys I really admire and look up to, Alex Jones with InfoWars, they just did a report on the border. They were literally in McAllen, Texas, and they were just there for a couple hours and they saw all these young children of every color. There were blonde-haired, blue-eyed children. There were Latino children. There were all kinds of children that looked like they were being trafficked. Like, if we don't stand up to that, if we acquiesce with that and don't speak out, we are complicit with it.
Number 4, everything is your fault. It's always someone else's fault. The government, the media, my boss. But could it really be my own responsibility to affect change? So can you even clean up your own room? No. Well, think about that. You should think about that because you can't even clean up your own room. Who the hell are you to give advice to the world? Dr. Jordan B. Peterson. What if I became a more loving man, a more generous man, a stronger man? Not only would you become better, but everyone around you in return become better. All wrongs in your life at some point have to stop being someone else's fault. You have to own up to your own mess. You have to take responsibility for the decisions that you have made, good, bad, or indifferent. When we continually blame others for our own lack, our own bad decisions, our own displaced status in life, we refuse to accept and to be accountable for our own lives.
Accountability. Man, I'll tell you, the number one virtue that I hope I can give my children one day is to show them that they have to be accountable for their own actions and for where they are in life and for the things that they do. That when shit doesn't work out, that they need to look in the mirror and go, why didn't that work out? One of the toughest lessons I ever learned was that, and it's funny, it's in so many areas of life, but I had this gentleman who worked for me. When I say worked for me, I worked for someone. I was a production manager, and we hired on this foreman, and the foreman was awesome, just crushed it. And he was beating budget on a regular basis, and he started asking, can I leave early on Friday? I got to pick up my kid. They were all good reasons, right? But asked if he can leave early, take a day off, and I was fine with it because he continued to get results. He was a great leader and his team loved him and everything else. Well, a couple months after that started happening, he comes back to me and he's like, hey man, I gotta move on. I've got another job I'm taking. I'm like, what the heck? He's like, I'm just not getting enough hours. So, of course, who was I mad at? I was mad at him. What the hell is he talking about? Is he crazy? It took me a couple years of reflection to realize that I was the one who allowed that, okay? It was my job as his leader to hold him accountable to work the hours that he needed to work to put that time in. And it was a big lesson for me. And I wanted to blame him. And I did at first. But the reality was I had to blame myself. I allowed that situation to happen. I was responsible not to let that situation happen. And that's when you know you've, I think, grew up a little bit and reached a point when you can reflect on things and say, you know what? What did we learn from it? And that's I think that's taking accountability. That's putting it on ourselves. And that's what you're supposed to do in life. And if you're not doing that and you want to put stuff on other people, that's true weakness as far as I'm concerned. And that does show.
So as we see, there's a common theme in regards to fostering a environment that weakness is the default position.
For a lot of people, not everyone.
If you allow, like one of the things in my book, not the plug, there is a whole chapter about accountability. But the point is that the things that we're referring to, you know, like back to what Norm said about like people preferring deception, people wanting to live in a lie. The ideas that we're talking about, weakness fosters an environment for people to be their worst self, whereas discipline and accountability and trying to live one's life morally upright, I would even say like with us, like allowing the precepts of God's word to guide our life in every decision that we make is important. And people can prescribe to whatever system of faith they want to, but the reality of it is that without some sort of accountability, without some sort of discipline, without some sort of anchor, we now see what we are veritably having adult temper tantrums in the halls of Congress. And it should send a shiver down people's spine.
The best way to catch that is to try and curb it. Be parents to your children earlier in life.
You can't just do whatever the hell you want and not get, and that's the problem. I think so many kids are raised these days, not just now, but over the last 20 years, where
the no generation of children.
Yeah, they're just not
trophy.
Yeah, it drives me crazy. And in all seriousness, not to make a joke about it, but that drives me crazy.
One of the memes,
when I see parents doing the whole no, don't do that, no, don't do that, there has to be, in an iron sharpens iron sense, which I know sounds really drastic when you're talking about raising kids, but that's the truth. You slap their hands so they don't burn their hand on a stove. There has to be some level of discipline that's equal to the gravity and the weight of what happens if they don't learn that lesson.
One of the greatest memes I've ever seen is husband, wife, and their child at the desk of their teacher school conference, and it's the same picture on both sides, and the one side says, when I was a kid. The parents looking at the kid and saying, why are you failing this class, right? And the other one says, now. And the parents looking at the teacher saying, why is he failing this class, right? And the accountability shifted from the child, the one who is responsible for the grades, to the teacher, as if they're responsible for,
personal accountability means
right. Let's own it's not his fault that, or her fault that they're not getting the work done. And just that meme, I thought absolutely laid out what we're living in society today.
I will say this too. What did not help me when I was trying to fight and scratch and claw my way out of my struggles in life was people telling me, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. And I believed that. And I was a victim. And my woes was everybody else. And it was everything else until somebody looked me in the eye and said, son, you got to take responsibility for this, you know? And you know why there's so much anger wrapped up in all of this stuff today about it's not your fault, you're a victim, you're a victim, you're a victim? Because pride and shame are intermingled. That pride and that arrogance that's telling everybody it's not your fault, it's not your fault. There's so much anger wrapped up in that because there's that inner truth inside us all that says, I can change this. It is my fault. And there's a shame in that.
And it's truth hurts. That's a great quote.
Even times where it might not be your fault, it doesn't mean that it's not your responsibility to clean it up. In life, we sometimes have to clean up things that aren't our fault.
Right.
Well, that's just
it
part
is
of
my
life.
responsibility how I respond to things.
Right, exactly.
And how I cope with things.
Yeah, so first of all, lesson, if you haven't been taught this lesson, and life is not fair. This whole equal outcome bullshit, that's not how it works. Life is not fair.
Nor should it.
But what you just said, Norm, just triggered me. Taking responsibility, but how you look at things is really important. All right, so Attitude by Charles Swindoll. The longer I live, the more I realize the impact of attitude on life. Attitude, to me, is more important than facts. It is more important than the past, than education, than money, than circumstances, than failures, than successes, than what other people think, say, or do. It is more important than appearance, giftedness, or skill. It will make or break a company, a church, a home. The remarkable thing is we have a choice every day regarding the attitude we embrace for that day. We cannot change our past. We cannot change the fact that people will act in a certain way. We cannot change the inevitable. The only thing we can do is play the one string we have, and that is our attitude. I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge of our attitudes. And the piece that hit me when you said that was, we cannot change the past. We cannot change the fact that people act in a way. We cannot change the inevitable. Meaning, shit happens. Life is unfair. So you have a choice in how you're going to respond respond to that. You have a choice, right? And this is where I look at Martin Luther King and call him a hero. He chose which direction he was going to act every day when he got up and how he was going to use his attitude for the things that were unfair in his life and stand up for everyone else, because it was an unfair time at that. You know what I'm saying? There were unfair laws and unfair rules and people were being treated. And when I say unfair, I'm talking,
it was bad.
I'm talking killed and stuff, right?
It was bad.
So but he got to choose. He could come out angry and yelling and blaming everyone, or he can say positive and say, this is, we need to change. We need to do things. And that's just one example.
And now that things are changed, people are saying, people say, well, things are hard and things are tough and things should be more fair. And some people are saying, well, it was bad 60 years ago, so it's unfair to me today.
Well, that goes back to hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create good times.
There's no doubt.
And it goes back to me, the common thread that we are seeing here, from we are all little kings to courage has died and we mourn her not, to we are chocolate soldiers, to it's all your fault, is a fostering and a allowance, if you will, of weakness, of angel softness, if you will, to permeate our society and now for several generations. I have a couple other scriptures, and I want us to take this in and evaluate our own hearts and to really think, am I weak? And listen, we're sitting in my lighted, air-conditioned house right now with the advantages of technology to be able to come and communicate with you. The whole idea we are all little kings is, that's not a bad thing, but it is, like John was saying when he went on the mission trips to the Navajo Nation, it is in your perspective and it is your usage. The larger point is that this idea of weakness being touted and celebrated, victimology, intersectionality, we need to shun that, because that is ultimately contributing to the demise of our society, of our republic. And this isn't hyperbole. I'm not overstating anything. And think this for what you will. In my heart, I know when God speaks to me. I know my gut rarely is wrong. And what I can tell you guys, we need to learn this. We need to learn about courage, and we need to learn about strength in God. In our weakness, He is made strong, but not conditioning ourselves to celebrate and permeate this weakness as a culture and society. We need to realize that there are hard times coming. I'm just telling you, society is only woven together by a very, very thin thread. We're just pulling a part of that thread that weaves. So
it goes beyond that, honestly. If you're wanting to break it down to what the biggest problem with that whole mentality is, the issue with that whole weak-minded effect of always blaming somebody else for your own stink and for always wanting to make excuses for your actions and always wanting somebody else to take the blame for what's going on in life, is that one day we will all stand before the Father. And in Romans 14, it states this. It says, but you, why do you criticize your brother? Or you again, why do you look down on your believing brother or regard him with contempt? For we will all stand before the judgment seat of God, who alone is judge. For it is written in Scripture, as I live, says the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall give praise to God. So each one of us will give an account of himself to God. Then let us not criticize one another anymore, but rather determine this, not to put an obstacle or a stumbling block or a source of temptation in another believer's way. I know and am convinced as one in the Lord Jesus that nothing else is unclean, ritually defiled, or unholy in itself, but nonetheless, it is unclean to anyone who thinks it is unclean. So basically what God is saying is, your excuses are all fine and dandy while you're on earth. I guarantee you one day you'll stand before me, and there's not an excuse you can make.
Zero.
There's no argument. There is no conjecture. There is no weakness. Does not exist in God's dojo, so to speak.
Fear does not exist in this dojo, does it? No, Sensei! Pain does not exist in this dojo, does it? No, Sensei! Defeat does not exist in this dojo, does it? No, Sensei!
And you're going to have to take an account of it. You can't.
You're not going to be able to blame your neighbor
for my crap at that point in time, which is why you need
to. You're not going to be able to blame your neighbor.
You got to get it straight before you get there, because you can't get there and then try and, because that's how everyone wants to look at life, is one day I'll take care of this. I'll take care of it. No, it's too late. When you're standing before the Creator, there are no excuses. It is what it is. You're standing before the judgment of God. Sorry.
No, it's
sorry.
good.
I'm not sorry.
That was good. All right. 2 Timothy 1:7, Amplified Bible. For God did not give us a spirit of timidity or cowardice or fear, but He gave us a spirit of power and of love and of sound judgment and personal discipline, abilities that result in calm, well-balanced mind and self-control.
So I think that right there just quantifies what we've been discussing.
Yeah,
I have a couple other quotes. Thank you.
Well,
I didn't write it. I can't take
credit for it. No, it was a good scripture to put in.
Good going, God.
Yeah, yay, big guy.
We dig your wisdom, God.
But I don't know who wants to read these next couple quotes.
This is a quote from our good buddy Plato. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Being afraid of the truth, we're continuing on from there. My good sister Rosa Parks said this: I have learned over the years that when one's mind is made up, this diminishes fear. Knowing what must be done does away with all fear.
That is a great quote by Rosa Parks. I mean, that is
from a person who stood in direct opposition to the tyranny of her day. So,
oh my gosh, yeah. Talk about someone who should be afraid. It almost reminds me of last week talking about our two buddies who burned at the cross.
Latimer and Ridley.
Yeah, and what he said on the way out, right? Once your mind's made up, man, you don't fear anything, kind of thing.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Once you've set that path and determined in your heart. So if you already know, no matter the temptation, no matter the quote unquote reward, no matter what is being presented before you, you are not going to give in to whatever. You are not going to fall to evil. And it makes every decision that much easier. And I want to share one other quote: is neglect of the Bible which makes so many prey to the first false teacher whom they fear. That's from C.J. Ryle. I just think with a sobriety and with a open mind, need to survey where we're at, take a look at our surroundings, situational awareness, and we just encourage people to look at your lives. Where is it that you can begin to make alterations? And they don't have to be these huge things that automatically overnight changes, because I can tell you in my life, in the last almost 5 years, no change has occurred overnight. It's always been a deliberate and slow process that takes a long time to work out. That in this time in history, we can begin to stand in direct opposition of the hour that we're in to this evil and just say no. All right. Any final thoughts, gents?
More God, less of me.
I just want to, my final thought is, again, being the 4th of July weekend, that all you on Second Amendment people, remember, we're celebrating a day that was won by armed citizens.
Norm, final thoughts?
I like the quote that you shared. I mean, basically, if we're not abiding in God's word, then we're going to give in to what we fear, to paraphrase what you said. But I like that. It's something to live by.
All right, everybody. Well, we do want to thank you for tuning in to another fun-filled, triggering episode of Flawedcast. Make sure you subscribe. Show us some love. Leave a 5-star comment. We had someone leave us a 2-star comment, so thank you for that person also. Bringing our rating down on Apple Podcasts to 4.8.
Right. You take the good.
You take the bad. You take them both, and there you have the facts of life. Yeah. So, but anyway, subscribe on Rumble, on YouTube, I think. Flawed Inc. FlawedInc.com is our website. Follow us on the Project Mockingbird social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are on Gab, Parler, and MeWe. Please get a copy of my book, Smith's Heart of Man Repair Manual. It's everywhere that books are sold. On the east side here, Cleveland, Ohio, Mozak's Christian Books and Gift, they are carrying it. So go and pick it up there. Thank them for that. Happy birthday, America. Well, this is going to be a week late, but yeah.
Yeah, take some time. Be grateful for what we have while we have it, at least. Say your prayers, kiss your babies.
More God.
Hide your wife, hide your kids. More God.
I'm the one that gave them $1.9 trillion.
I gotta find the notes.
It was me. I wrote the bill. I'm Joe Biden. I wrote the bill.
Oh my gosh. I was
What
the
were you guys
butt-
doing?
I was the butt of all the jokes last night.
I
mean, I'd like to have some coffee.
I'd like to have some coffee first. My name is Norm. Baba booey, baba booey. Hold on. Wait, here's the next verse.
Make it better, because it wasn't my brother who brutally died.
Did you laugh or cry when you listened to the videos that I sent with him?
I chambered around.
Wish you could step out from the ledge, my friend.
Got ties with all the lies you've been living in.
Yeah, remember,
You know what? This relationship's just not working right now, Billy.
Some states it's worse, where
Bill.
the weather is tougher. 50 years, 50% of our bridges are over 50 years old.
That's a lot of 50.
400,000, well, I won't get into the numbers. I get carried away. Power outages cost the U.S. economy.
I'm not getting into the facts.
Now, this
You
is,
know the thing, man.
You know the thing.
Come on, man.
That big a deal.
I like it when my grandkids rub the hair on my legs in the pool.
Popcorn was a main mood.
$1 billion annually. You hear me? The entire system in the state collapsed. The entire system. This deal will modernize the power grid,
Joe Biden.
be more energy efficient, and resilient and resistant to extreme weather. Anybody ever believe you turn on the news and say it was 116 degrees in Portland, Oregon? 116 degrees.
Yeah, it happened when I was like 8.
Especially for cyclists and pedestrians, which are increasing significantly. I won't even get into this now, but you know, we have thousands of miles of pipeline.
No, you shut them all off.
The majority of those pipes are 60 years old.
Well,
They're old. Listen how stupid he is.
A lot of them are leaking.
Don't build new one.
What are we not doing?
Building a pipeline.
500,000 charging stations nationwide along our highways.
That's good for my iPhone right
so you're going to stop along the highway and charge your car?
China is going full
dumb.
bore.
China's going full bore.
When you build a charging station,
He got a hard on. He's like, China? Oh, God, Woody.
Let's make them think we make electric cars.
I wonder if he gets like 10 grand every time he says China.
85% of them, like the ones you had here.
Dude,
I really, really don't like that guy.
That's how I'm going to do it. Flawedcast, episode 85. Celebration of weakness.
Oh,
I wrote the bill.
That's right, because most of the time when Bill says I like a movie, I don't. And then when he says I wouldn't like it, I usually love it. So,
Give me an example.
facts aren't important.
you said 50, but it felt like you said 500. What are you, a Democrat now? Now that movie I did not like.
You didn't care for it?
The Last Blood?
Jesus, dude, how do you not like that movie?
It's as bad as Good Will Hunting, he says.
I just don't even know what to say. I
He
mean,
rips the heart out of a sex trafficker, bro. What's not to like?
that killed the only thing in the world that he loved.
Yeah.
I mean,
Besides killing people, he loves to
It
do
was
that
like
too.
poetic justice.
I'm gonna
Okay,
tear your heart. I'm gonna cut your heart out.
then he nails him to the wall with the
arrows.
bow. I mean, that's Shakespearean.
And then he cuts his heart out. It's beautiful.
While he's alive.
Okay, you got me.
Well, what's a synonym for weakness?
A cinnamon?
What's the word?
Enerve it. Here.
Yeah, but everyone's gonna have to look it up. I mean, I like the word if we're using it as we said it, but it's part of the title.
Let's just see how many times we can use it in this episode. There's a nervousness of...
Enerve it. Enerve it. Enerve it.
Play the man.
How-
Wait for Norm to say, play with the man.
I'm the one who wrote the bill. Play with the man.
Wouldn't it be funny if I just put that in the intro? Play with
No, what you need to say is play the man. Or as our fearless leader would say, play with the man.
By yourself.
Alrighty then.
So I'm going to say Flawedcast. And then you're going to do your Flawedcast. And then I'm going to say...
in the arena and play with the man.
We're doing a
Play the man,
soundbite
guys.
here. Play the man.
Guys, play the man.
Hey, you guys.
This is the energy.
I think everybody should just play the man.
Work it, play the man.
I think we should all just play the man.
Real good.
Play with the man.
Look out, Washington, here I come. Play the man. Angel soft, man.
Oh, I like the
You got
angels.
something
in my
You got something against the Angels, man?
Just the soft ones. Play that, man.
Thanks for not tricking me. I thought these were going to be chocolate raisins. I was going to throw up.
No, I would never do that to a brother.
Play the man.
No, I'll make it work.
I don't even know if I said it like 100 times like earlier, so maybe one of those will work.
No, we're doing it now. I'm not going back and editing all that shit. It's just Takes
Oh, you can't just like
Play with the man.
And do it like, ready? Play the man.
play the man.
There you go.
All right.
Play the man.
A little pause there, see?
Play the man.
All right, that's good. I'll make it work like I do.
All I know is this: is on the outtakes, we better hear at least one boo. I won't be upset. All right, ready to do this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Oops, silence your cell phones.
Mine already works.
That's pretty good.
And I'm the man.
I like that everyone got into
I
that
wrote the
one. That was
bill. I wrote the bill.
Get on your knees. Give me all your money.
I'm the one who gave him 1.9 trillion.
Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. That sucked.
That's gonna go
Pretty much.
Flawedcast, episode number 85. I knew it creaked. Hey, boo-boo. How about we steal a big nigga basket? I don't know, Yogi. The ranger wouldn't be happy. You don't worry about the ranger. I will take care of him. Anyway, so erase all that bullshit, though.
Sorry.
I guess I'm gonna. Yeah, jeez. All right. What do we? I don't even.
I don't know. I'm just a little bit dumber right now.
Yeah. Come on, Sad Eyes. Turn that frown upside down.
Hey, folks.
Proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free.
And I won't forget the men who died.
Who gave their right to
Oh,
me?
And I'll probably stand up next to you.
And defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt.
He pulls it away at the clincher.
God bless the USA.
All right.
Don't
Yes.
pull it away before you clinch it.
It's important for me right now that we. The hell was that?
Wait for you.
Did you fart?
No, he's tapping his.
Oh, okay. It sounded like you farted. Somebody.
Just like this. So.
Well, as he looks at Norm's. It's
I
important.
think they have the bromance.
They might. You know.
The way they
Innocent, just like last night at dinner.
fight.
Secret lovers. So let's start to get
Santa
into the.
Claus isn't fat either, so.
Tim Allen movie, he was only fat half the time.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's start to get into
He's
this.
seasonally plump.
God Almighty.
You know what I just realized?
Hmm.
That Norm has your initial tattooed on his left arm. Big old B right there for Billiam.
Or his daughter, maybe?
I'm pretty sure it's for Bill.
Take it for what you will.
Nice. Well,
Maybe it stands for Biden.
How do you say that? Ecclesiastes?
Ecclesiastes.
Ecclesiastes.
yes.
Having instant access to information that would have taken previous generations centuries, decades, years, moths, and days to be. It does say moths.
It does.
There's several typos in here because Bill actually had to type this one out.
I
And he's
did.
blind.
Okay.
Our boo is a blind.
We have a blind boo.
The idea of.
Go ahead.
I literally drew a blank.
Whoa.
Intersectionality theory. Why'd you write it 3 times?
Intersectional.
Okay.
They changed it. It's intersectionality theory and intersection
Oh, okay.
theory.
Okay. That was my bad, boo.
Okay, last paragraph, take 37.
For God did not give us a spirit of timidity. Is that right?
Yep.
Timidity? You don't say that word often, you know?
It was like a golden moment where I talked to her. I said, it wasn't your brother who brutally died.
But it wasn't mine, so let me define.